Welcome to the Dairyland Patriot podcast. Today, we are going to be discussing Trump's aggressive immigration policy. Obviously, lots of protests going on around this, but there are other ways you can help, and that's the heart of the story today. But before we get into that, let's discuss the policy itself. Today, we have with us Kelly Fenton, the lead editor for the Dairyland Patriot. Welcome to the podcast, Kelly.
Great to be here, Travis.
Great to have you here. So first, when we say aggressive immigration policy, how would you characterize that? How could we call it aggressive? What's going on?
Well, number one, I think it's arbitrary. I think they've set this unrealistic goal of 3,000 deportations a day. And as a result of that, it's put an enormous pressure on ICE to find 3,000 people a day to deport. Now, I don't think they're hitting those numbers, but what it means is, whereas normally our immigration deportation policy has been to go after people who are criminal and who are causing trouble in the country, to hit these numbers, they are grabbing up everybody. And I think the latest numbers I saw was 75% of people who have been deported so far have absolutely no criminal record. So that's one of the ways that this is, aggressive, way too aggressive.
Right. And then you can get into like the illegal and cruel tactics that they're doing, right? They're the military style raids on the South Shore apartment in Chicago. I heard a story about a 14-year-old boy in Texas who was like selling stuff with his family, and he went to go to the bathroom and they just took him. Didn't tell his family or anything. And he was gone for like a week. Family had no idea, probably had some idea what was going on, but no way to find him.
Horrifying. Absolutely horrifying.
Yeah. Stopping people just based on their color, not listening to him. There's that story of George, I think his name was. It was in the Atlantic. He was a U.S. citizen and a veteran of the Iraq and Afghanistan war, and he was working on a farm. And they took him from there, and he's telling them, "Hey, I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm a veteran. I got my ID in my car," and they just wouldn't have any of it. Yeah, they just hauled him off to basically solitary confinement for 3 days before they let him out.
Well, and it doesn't help, of course, that we've recruited all of these, young men, I guess, to ICE, again, because there's no way they're going to hit their quotas with the current force. And so we've got people who are not trained to do this. And it would seem that a large portion of those people are taking advantage of the opportunity to exert their domination over people. And that can't lead to anything but cruelty and extra-legal action.
Right. So think of that 3,000 deportations a day as like the wood, the base of the fire, and then you pour $75 billion in supplemental funding for ICE, $45 billion for detention capacity, and $30 billion for personnel and enforcement operations. On top of that is gas, and it's definitely a problem. That is actually roughly 3 times ICE's normal budget. They've tripled it. It is now the largest law enforcement expenditure in the United States is ICE.
And yet they don't want to fund Medicaid, and they do not want to extend the enhanced subsidies so that people's health insurance won't double or price them out of insurance entirely. So these are moral decisions that are being made, and or I would say immoral decisions.
Right, and it all comes at a cost, right? You're talking about some of the programs that a lot of Americans rely on not getting funding. Well, ICE is getting this funding, and it's also from a law enforcement perspective, a lot of things that aren't getting investigated in favor of looking at immigrants. And Again, they said worst of the worst, but they're not going after the worst of the worst. They're going after a quota number.
Yeah.
And there's real beyond the policies we can't fund because of this, beyond the cruelty and extra legal tactics. There's other impacts to our economy and people in the United States, right?
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, I think I saw that undocumented immigrants, uh, and maybe immigrants in general, contribute $100 billion a year to federal and state tax revenue coffers, while taking out almost nothing because they're not eligible for anything. Uh, People talk about them being a drain on our economy. It's simply not true, and that doesn't even take into account the essential labor that they provide for farms, which I think I saw 50% of farm labor is immigrants. Construction work, dairy
in
farms.
Manitowoc, there was a raid that hit the dairy farms over there fairly hard.
Yeah,
And even the people that weren't deported stopped showing up for work because they didn't want to get deported next. You say construction. I know someone that owns a specialty construction business with crews around the United States. His best employee that was on track to be co-owner of the business with him is from Mexico, and he always did things the right way. He got his visa, came over here, worked, he always went back home and reapplied, and he was on the job about a month or two ago, and he got picked up, and they deported him, and he was basically a member of the family, right? Like this business owner's kids knew him for years, and they're like, "Where's Uncle so and so?" And they had to tell him, he was deported, even though he was doing things right. And it, from a business perspective, he was their best employee. This is a job where people are on the road 90% of the time, and
yeah,
I think he said to me basically he was dedicated. He did it. He was a good worker. A lot of their other workers aren't as dedicated. Maybe they got records. Maybe they got substance abuse issues. Like, you can't get a lot of good people necessarily to go and do that kind of job where you're on the road most of the time. That's hard.
right,
So that it
right.
really was a net negative for their business in a big way.
Yeah, and I don't think the Trump administration ever thinks about consequences. I think they think about, what does this look like on TV? How can I promote this on Fox? Uh,
Yeah.
and and then the economic fallout of that, they just lie about. But fortunately, I think a large percentage of America is, and now immigration was one of the reasons that Trump allegedly, or why people said they voted for him, but he's underwater on immigration now. And I think like 60-40 people are opposed to these methods and the way he's going about it. So I guess I take some heart from that.
Yeah, and it's, I think it'll swing even further because it's now being linked to, hey, people are showing up to protest this because it's one of the things you can do. And then Trump is trying to justify the fact that people are dressed up in frog costumes bouncing around in front of ICE facilities. Now we need to call in the National Guard. And now you get even more people interested. Like, what do you mean we need the National Guard? Like, I remember when they were deployed in Kenosha and in St. Louis and Minneapolis as a result of riots where there was widespread damage. Like, it was all over the news. Nobody would deny that you needed the National Guard to go in and restore order, but that's not what's going on here. So people are noticing that, and I think it's going to push public opinion even further against what's going on here. So absolutely advocate for people to protest non-violently and safely, especially No Kings is upcoming Saturday, October 18th, if you're listening to this on time. But there's other ways that you can help beyond protest. So now
Well, you,
the fun part, we're going to share some stories about mutual aid. The first one we're going to talk about is in New London. So what's going on in New London, Kelly?
in New London back in April, uh, about 100 families came into New London under President Biden's CHNV plan, temporary protected status for people from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. And these are people whose lives were endangered in their homeland. And so Biden offered them temporary protected status. Well, about 100 Haitian families came into New London. About 100 people, heads of household, went to work at the New London Tyson food plant and became part of the community and were making decent money and were an essential cog in Tyson's operations there. Well, along comes Trump, and in April, he ordered them to self deport. So a bunch of about two or three dozen people went out and protested one morning outside the Tyson food plant. And I should say, Tyson is not to blame here. They really are limited in their options, but they were let go. We went out and protested, and a couple of immigration lawyers were there. And people talked about how these Haitian families had begun to become part of the community. And New London is not, like a bastion of liberalism or progressivism, but this is another example of when people meet people, they recognize them as humans. That's why so many people came out. Well, there was an injunction against Trump's order by a federal judge, but then it was overturned by another court in July. And Trump revoked their work status and their work permits, I'm sorry. So they no longer could work at all. The good thing that came out of that is that a woman named Helene Pohl, who is a French translator from France, and a couple of her fellow New Londoners uh, got together and put together an immigration fund. It's called the Immigrant Fund. And over the last 4 months, they have raised $28,000. They are using this money to pay these people's rent, to pay their car insurance, to pay their utilities. They have worked to try to get these people day labor, either with crops or working in people's yards. In the meantime, these Haitians, the ones who haven't already gone back to their horrible living conditions back to Haiti because they couldn't sustain their life here without work, the ones that are still here are surviving through this immigrant fund. Now, they have applied for asylum, and some of them just recently got a 5-year work permit, which I don't understand immigration law, but if you apply for asylum, after a certain amount of time, you can get a work permit. So some of them are back to work. In the meantime, they are continuing the immigrant fund to try to raise money to help these families. I think 27 people have been aided by them so far. The people have to meet certain conditions to receive this money, and one of those conditions is they have to have applied for asylum. I do want to say that if you want to help, you can go to First Credit Union, write a check in whatever amount, and put in the memo line, New London Immigrant Fund, and that money will go into that fund and help these people try to survive while they stay in limbo. So that's the New London story, and it's a tragic one in many ways. It's also heartening to see how community has stepped up.
Yeah, and like you said, this isn't a very progressive community. Obviously, all communities are mixed. But I went to high
Right.
school in Waupaca County. It's part of Waupaca County. Waupaca County overall is reliably conservative for the most
Right.
part. What's this next story about? Hope and Help and the Fox Valley Newcomers Project.
So Hope and Help Together is an organization that, and it's kind of hard to delineate between Hope and Help Together and the Fox Valley Newcomers Project. And in fact, when I talked to them, I think they kind of struggle to separate the two. They're kind of uh, integrate, integrated together, but the primary focus of Hope and Help Together and the Fox Valley Newcomer Project is to take the newcomers here who have been established, uh, or at least been settled, and to link them up with crucial services around the community. And when newcomers come here, I think World Relief is the go-to organization for getting these people situated with those very first essential needs. But then after that comes the hard part, where these people have to somehow survive and hopefully thrive in America, speaking a different language in a new culture, without work, without any understanding of how our financial services work, how to get credit. It's very complicated, and the
Yeah,
Newcomer Project,
I'm
which
looking at this list here and other things on there: legal aid, healthcare, education, language and literacy, employment, transportation, housing, and driving. Like some of those are hard for Americans to navigate. Navigating our healthcare system is not easy, even if you have insurance.
right, right,
Right.
exactly. And
Mhm.
and and they are, they are available. They can get medical care through these nonprofit clinics, and but that takes paperwork. And so a lot of what Hope and Help Together does is they help them navigate that. But the thing I discovered when doing this story was this whole list you just read off. Almost every one of them depends on one of the other things in that list. You can't really find employment until you learn to speak the language. Uh, Employment often takes transportation to get to your job. Um, uh, Education is another one that often requires uh, transportation. You can't really get a loan unless you understand how finance and credit works in this country. So housing is dependent upon understanding that aspect of our culture. Um,
Sure.
Driving, how to drive, um, understanding driving laws. That's a lot of what Hope and Help Together does.
And,
Uh,
and
to
they work with other groups too, right? Like I think I read in this story when it came to driving, they actually have someone from the Appleton Police Department come there, and that's part of like these are the police. This is their job in this situation. These are the rules. But if you get a follow of the rules or something happens, these are the people you're going to deal with.
Exactly, yeah, and they spoke highly of the APD, who they refer uh, a lot of people to Hope and Help Together. Uh, and they when they're doing driver's ed, they want to go through all the laws, and here's how this works. I mean, everything is different here. And I guess I'd ask people to try to imagine how desperate your life must have been to come to a new country and try to navigate everything that they have to navigate. I mean, that takes a lot of desperation to be willing to do that. And so to think that these people are here and mean us ill is pretty absurd on the face of it.
Yeah, and I think it's such a necessary component. Like we want to have immigration. Nobody's talking about completely shutting down immigration. We know immigrants are good for us in the long run. We are all descendants of immigrants, right?
Yeah,
And one thing I was speaking with someone who's a law enforcement officer, and he sees the criminal side of it. So he's not as opposed to some of what's going on. He's opposed to some of these abuses, but he's seen the bad side of it. And one of his comments was he talked about the culture in the issues with culture, and I think it's that can also be kind of like a dog whistle, like
Yeah,
right? It could be a dog
right,
whistle for
right.
racism. We want white Christian people here, and that's all we want. But I think if you look at history, like it's always been a story of, hey, these Italians, these Germans, these Jews, they're not going to be able to accommodate American culture. American culture isn't going to be able to accommodate them. But in the long run, they've enriched our culture. They are a part of our
Absolutely.
culture. We are the melting pot. We are
Yes.
immigrants. In the long run, the culture story is positive. Like I like tacos. I like
Yeah.
tacos, right? There's a lot of elements of Mexican culture I love. I love the idea of Day of the Dead. I love the art from some of that. It's a ridiculous argument because in the long run, it works out, and it with programs like this, that long run, that timeline is even shorter, right? If you've got groups saying, "Hey, we're going to give you the resources to blend in enough to be able to get along with us, to understand how we work," and then the culture isn't like this, that, or the other thing. It's like the values, the work ethic, the family values, the
Right.
community values, the being nice to other people. That's what culture is. It's not skin color. If they're getting help with language, that's going to help them blend in. It's going to help the school districts too. There's a selfish aspect to it. I forget which school district it was. It may have been Oshkosh. Said they've got 19 different languages in
Yeah.
their school
Yeah.
district that they have to provide support for, and that's real, and there's a cost to it, and people will say, well, there's the cost of immigration. But even that, I think, is something that goes away as we move forward with like AI translation and stuff like that. Like there's ways we can provide help to get them proficient in the English language outside of schools. Even
Yes.
and technology can come in and fill some of the gaps. These aren't arguments to stop all immigration or have less. There's ways to make sure that they blend in better sooner.
Well, and a lot of these people were professionals where they came from, you know,
Yep.
accountants, professors, chemists, and we treat them as though they are not accomplished people simply because they are, struggling to figure out America, understandably. And
Yeah.
and then when you add in what our culture is in terms of capitalism, in terms of consumerism, in terms of I don't know, maybe we tend to be isolated, whereas a lot of these cultures are very family oriented,
Individualistic,
individualistic. I
which
believe that would,
which does lead to isolation too, to some extent.
and that kind of covers what I was trying to get at. And so these people are not only thrown into all these other things, but trying to figure out this fast paced American culture. I mean, it's got to be frightening. It's got to be
Yeah.
just unsettling. They put on their website, uh, Hope and Help Together, the acculturation curve, they call it. What are the steps toward eventually feeling settled in this country? And they say it can take as long as 10 years. Uh, the first phase is called euphoria, and that is simply taking a breath because I've gotten away from the trauma I ran from. But right upon that, right behind that, is the culture shock. This is now what? Now what do I do? And this is where all these other things come in, where they are thrown into this maelstrom of understanding the culture and the language and finance and education and employment. And they say that can take anywhere from 2 to 10 years to get to the point where you just finally feel like I am part of this tapestry. Um, it's actually very admirable that I couldn't do it. I could not
Yeah.
do it. I'm pretty sure.
I was in Chicago a couple of weeks ago, and Uber driver down there was from Turkmenistan. He was a pediatric surgeon in Turkmenistan, and he came here and he was driving Uber to make a living until he could put himself back through school, because you need like schooling in the United States and
Yeah.
certain things, accreditation to be able to do it. He's a pediatric surgeon driving for Uber because he wanted to come here because of the opportunities, and he's willing to do that. And to think that he could be the who doesn't need more surgeons, right? We need who doesn't like pediatric surgeons, especially, and to think that he could be someone that would be like, hey, we've got a quota to fill. Let's pull his visa or his work status or whatever and tell him to self-deport.
Yeah. It's maddening. And think of the humility that takes to go from being a pediatric uh, doctor, and now you're driving an Uber. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, and I'm sure they're not saying there's anything wrong with
No,
that.
no, but
But
it's
to be
it's it's
treated,
a it's a exercise in humility, and
but
that's it's
and
actually
then
like a character trait. That is a positive mark on somebody.
absolutely, absolutely, and then to be treated as less than by people who don't have a tenth of his accomplishments or her accomplishments. Uh, that's got to be another hurdle uh, to navigate, is just knowing that people are looking at you that way. And back where you came from, you were somebody, you were accomplished.
What's the Newcomers project? Is that something different or
Well, that's what I was saying.
okay?
It is an offshoot of Hope and Help Together.
Oh, okay.
What what it does is it enlists organizations within the Fox Valley that can come on board as part of this overarching help for newcomers. So it's the Appleton School District, it's Green Bay School District, it's Menasha, it's some of these employment agencies around here, um, and it's multicultural organizations. Um, it is church leaders. So it's really more of a holistic way to approach finding out the needs of newcomers. And they do a what's called a community map, where they go out and find where the gaps are in the services that are available to newcomers, and the gaps that newcomers feel like they don't know how to access. And
Oh, okay. Now I think I'm starting to see how this fits together, because there was I think there was a different story about just a literacy group that we also did earlier this year,
can you
right?
hold on 1 second?
Yeah, yeah.
My cat is spinning a ball and is making so much noise.
Come on, kitty. Hold it together.
We can leave that in. Okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
So I'm starting to see this a little bit here. Hope and Help is more closely tied to like the immigrants, maybe go to them. Hope and Help works with Fox Valley Newcomers Project. Fox Valley Newcomers Project says, hey, what other services already exist in the community? Where are the gaps? They plug into all these services, and then they plug into Hope and Help so that the people
Yeah.
meet the services. So there's a lot of layers here. There's individual groups. Like I know we did another story about it was basically they just did the English as a second language type training earlier in the year, right? So they're probably
Uh,
plugged into here.
Fox Valley Literacy, perhaps?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's probably
Yeah,
one of the organizations, and it really
in fact,
it takes a village to be able to take care of a village, right? We're seeing
yeah.
there's multiple organizations have different roles, and I think that is really cool. And instead, it doesn't have to be one big organization that's making it all happen. If a group says we've got the wherewithal, we can teach a language, we're just going to put the service out there and maybe find somebody else that's doing this map of services and plugging it into immigrants, and eventually like maybe kind of like the field of dreams thing, right? If you build it, they will come. If you're, and this is Northeast Wisconsin. This is how many people in the Fox cities? Like 200,000?
I think that's about right. Yeah.
About 200,000 people. There's tons of communities out there our size that these services are really needed and can make a difference.
And so far, the Fox Valley Newcomers Project has held 3 summits where they've had all these various groups come from organizations, institutions within the Fox Valley, come and report on where they're at, what they're doing to try to further the cause of, settling immigrants, newcomers, they call them. And I went to the last one, there were like 120 people, and they break out into, discussion groups on various topics. I should mention that Hope and Help Together also has a Know Your Rights seminar. I do not know how often they do that, but this is one where they explain the laws to immigrants, what you do if you get stopped, what you shouldn't do if you get stopped by immigration or the police even, and how to navigate our legal interactions, let's say. And then they also provide legal aid for understanding their immigration status, which is very complex as well. And so they are doing wonderful work. I guess I'll just say that it is very elaborate and impressive work that they are doing. Finding out where the gaps are, finding out, recruiting organizations to fill those gaps, and linking newcomers up with the services that they need to survive. And of course, the goal is ultimately to thrive in America.
And I think what I like most, a couple of things I like about this. Number one, hearing all the horror stories, seeing the videos of people being abducted by plainclothes people in masks is horrifying. So it's refreshing, it's hope inducing to hear stories of immigrants that are making it and people that are helping them instead of hurting them. And it also, the 2 different stories show there's a lot of different ways to get involved. The first one was a community response to a specific group within their community, very ad hoc, very much making it up as they go. The second story shows a rich web of organizations that have found a way to fill all these gaps and provide services to immigrants to really thrive in the community. And they're 2 totally different tales where if you want to get involved to help immigrants survive hard times in response to crisis or even thrive in a normal situation, there's tons of different ways you can get involved.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would encourage you to go to the Hope and Help Together website. Make a donation if you'd like. There's an opportunity to do that, or get involved with the Fox Valley Newcomers Project. It's a easy to navigate site, and I know they need people. I think there's 10 different languages that they are that come into play with the newcomers that they deal with, and they're always looking for translators and lawyers and just people that are willing to step up.
Yep. That's awesome. And I'm sure if anyone's listening from outside of Northeast Wisconsin, and there's got to be other organizations out there like this. If you're looking for something to do, if you got some anxiety about what's going on, the cure to anxiety is action. Find out how you can help in your community. If you can't find an organization that does this and you're interested, maybe it's time to start one. And maybe you can reach out to other organizations like this to find out how they did it. We will put, again, information on how to find these organizations, how to donate or assist in any way you can. We'll put that in the show notes. And that is all for today. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great day.